Narcissistic parents are the most difficult people on earth to deal with. They're the most difficult parents to have. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you some strategies and how to deal with these difficult people. And I hope that this will really help you create a better relationship for yourself so that you can feel better about you. I'm Dr. Meg Haworth. I'm a transpersonal psychologist, holistic nutritional chef, and best-selling author of Get Well Now, Healing Yourself with Food and the Power of the Mind. And I help ACONs, adult children of narcissists, to become healed icons. And what's an icon? An icon is somebody who's independent, confident, original, and naturally you. All of the things that narcissistic parent squashes in you is what I help you with. So let's get started with this particular video. Strategies are something that we look for all the time as adult children of narcissists. We're trying to figure out, how do I relate to them? How do I make the arguing stop? How do I deal with them when they start to escalate? And what do I do for me in these situations? And I have to preface this whole thing. These strategies are not easy to carry out. It's not easy to just shift your behaviors on a dime. It doesn't work like that. What helps is for you to focus on you and get strong in yourself so that you can carry out the different strategies that I'm about to mention here in this video. All right, so strategy number 1, don't engage in their arguments. Now, this is a really hard thing to carry out the very first time you do it. What you may need to do when this happens is to use silence first. They start trying to pull you into an argument. They're baiting you. This is a narcissistic manipulation tactic where they bait you to get you into the argument so that they can receive more narcissistic supply, which I just talk about as energy. They're trying to gain your energy from you so that they feel more puffed up. They feel superior. They need to make themselves right. And they need to make you wrong, and they're going to do that in every single argument. So why engage in it in the first place, right? Like, when you fully notice and understand and accept, like, this is how they are, they're going to pull you into arguments just for the sake of arguing so they can feel superior. Like, do you want to give them that? So start thinking of it that way. So the first thing you might want to do in this argument situation is go silent. Give yourself a moment. Just go silent and see how they react. And this can be one of the most powerful things that you will ever do with a narcissistic parent or any narcissist in your life, is just to go silent, not say anything, don't engage in their argument. And I'm going to give you some more strategies of things that you can do later in this video that are related to this. So if you think about these strategies, are sort of all interrelated with each other. And you may use all of them within the same argument that they're trying to pull you into, because that's what they're going to be trying to do. So number 1 leads me into number 2. And number 2 is don't explain yourself. So you're going to feel like, and actually you'll be programmed to give all kinds of reasons why you did things the way you did, to try to justify things. And that ends up becoming part of the argument. And so the more information that you give a narcissistic person, the more ammunition in their minds that they have to use against you. Like, that's messed up, right? If you think about, they're looking for ammunition to use against me. My own parent is doing this. It's really hard to grasp this, but it's very, very important that you do. So the more data you give them, the more things they have to hurt you with. And that's the sad truth about how narcissistic parents act and react with their children. So don't over-explain things. Don't give them too much information about things going on in your life. Like, if you think back to, like, oh, wow, yeah, I remember the time that my parent used that against me and used that against me, and they brought that up and tried to sting me with something I said years ago, or something they heard about that wasn't the truth, but they never asked you what the true story was because they don't really have a relationship with you in the first place, where they would sit and listen to, hey, what really happened there? I heard this. That's not going to happen with a narcissistic parent. It's all about them. It's all about what they want, and it's all about them winning. They need to stay in a superior position. They need to stay in control of you. And so one of the ways that you give them control is by over-explaining yourself and by giving too much information. And you may find yourself doing this in every area of your life with every person that you are in relationship with somehow. You may find yourself over-explaining things all the time. This does not work with a narcissistic parent or any narcissist in your life. So stop explaining and giving a ton of information. Give them very short answers in a very flatlined sort of way so that you're not giving them ammunition to use. Before we move on to the next one, I would love to ask you to please like this video if you're getting something out of it, and please subscribe and also ring the bell for notifications so that you can get future videos that I put out just about every single week. There's going to be a video for you. There's always going to be at least some shorts. So check out my short videos as well, because those can be extremely helpful for you. So number 3, what I want you to start to do is to warn them that you're either going to hang up or leave if they become very abusive with you. So you're not going to use the word abusive and say, hey, you're abusing me, because this makes everything worse, because they're not going to accept accountability for that. And they're going to use that as a story against you, that they're going to be telling other people about what a horrible daughter or son that you are for bringing something up like that. I'm not abusive. I can't believe they said that. I'm the nicest person in the world. You know, I'm nice to everyone. I take everyone out for dinner. I do all these nice things for people. That's the kind of story that they're going to spin. So don't say that to them, even though you know they're being abusive. They're being horrible to you, right? So warn them that you're going to hang up or you're going to leave. And what this is a boundary, okay? Because a lot of people think that boundaries are rules that you set up for somebody else to follow, and that's not what boundaries are. Boundaries are something for you to follow for yourself. And so you just let them know, this is, if you do this, I'm going to do that, and then you do that. You have to do that thing that you say you're going to do. I'm going to hang up the phone if you speak to me like that. I'm going to leave if you speak to me like that. And then do it. And you may have to continue to do that time after time, and they may eventually start to understand that, hey, you're actually going to leave and you're actually going to hang up the phone, and you do it very, very calmly. That's going to make a big difference. A narcissistic person is going to look for any sort of weakness that you may have, and they're going to try to get right in there and make that weak spot, that little tiny pinprick of weakness, they're going to try to make it as big as they possibly can, because that gives them, it feeds them what they want. Unfortunately, it's really sick when you think about it. So that should be really helpful for you if you start to learn how to use boundaries in this way. And this brings me to my next point. And number 4 is to use empathy with your narcissistic parent. Whew, how do you do that? Now, it's really hard to find empathy for a narcissistic parent because they're so cruel. They can be so mean. They can be so judgmental, envious, jealous. They're vengeful. They're cruel. They're unkind. They're all the worst toxic traits that a person can possibly possess. All those worst toxic emotions that they can wield. They wield them. They're jealous. They're envious. They're all of these things. And so one of the things that really is helpful for you, and this is very hard to do that very first time that you do this, but when they start to try to pull you into an argument, say they get on the phone with you and they say, I can't believe you waited so long to call me. I'm just so upset that you didn't call me at this particular time. You usually call at this particular time. Or they may even say to you like, oh, this is not the right time to call. You're supposed to call at this time. Either way, you're going to get it wrong, right? and they're trying to pull you into an argument. So usually you get defensive and protective and you start explaining and say, well, I had to work, and then after I went to work, my appointment ran over, and then it took me a while to get there, and then I had to, so you're explaining all the reasons why, and then they're getting more and more supply listening to you explain the reasons why, and then it escalates, and then they start getting meaner and meaner and meaner with you. So instead, do this. And this is, again, it's hard to do this first time you do it, but say something like, I am so sorry. And you say it kind of flatlined. I am so sorry. That must be really hard for you. And if you say it with a feeling behind it, because there's a part of you, a side of you that has so much compassion for your narcissistic parent. And I'm saying that because you usually feel really sorry for them when you really look at the whole situation and you see how they don't have friends. They destroy every relationship they try to make. They are incredibly difficult. They shoot themselves in the foot at every turn. They're their own worst enemy. They make everything harder than it ever has to be. They're miserable, miserable people. And when you start looking at that and you go, God, I feel so sorry for my parent that they can't see themselves. They can't do anything to change. Then that can bring up empathy in you. You can really feel for them. I mean, what must that be like to be in a mind like that? It's the mind of a toddler. They are dealing with being emotionally stunted. They are like grown-up toddlers. And so you'll feel like you have to treat them like a child. And in essence, you kind of do. And that's what that line I just gave you really is about. It's about saying, okay, I see you. This must be hard for you. I'm sorry. And a lot of times they're like, what? But they'll often really go on more about that. They'll be like, well, yeah, it is really hard for me. And if you were to only blah, 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 and they'll go on. And then eventually they'll stop. And then you change the subject. And you say, hey, how's mom today? Or, hey, how's that dinner you went to last night with your friends? Or something where you can get the conversation into some other arena. It's the same way that you do with a toddler, right? You distract them. You give them a little bit of something that they're wanting, and then you distract them and move them into something else so that they forget what they were just doing. Like, that's how basic it can become. So the first time you try this is going to be really hard because your default is you were programmed to argue with them. And you may get into a place where like it's really hard for you. Like you can feel it hurts inside to not get into the argument, to not defend, to not protect. They've trained you to be defensive and protective in the face of any kind of argument or any kind of potential argument. And you may be doing that with everybody in your life. So really look at that, because with most people, you don't have to get defensive and protective. With a narcissist, you do. You do have to protect yourself. But this is one way of protecting yourself, is genuinely giving them empathy. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. That must be really hard. I'm so sorry I was late. I should have called sooner. Yeah, you're right. So you're telling them they're right, which is what they want to hear in the first place. And you may think, well, I'm not going to tell them they're right. Now that becomes a lockdown, because you have the consciousness and you have the ability to use your empathy and wield your empathy in a way that can be helpful and productive for them and for you most especially. And that's really ultimately, you're trying to take care of yourself. And in that moment, that's a new way of taking care of yourself. It's a different way of relating to them. So just try this experiment and see how it works. So number 5 is something that really is absolutely 100% necessary if you have a narcissistic parent, and that is to find support, maybe in a group or maybe with a therapist, but to find support to help you heal from the fallout of narcissistic abuse. You are going to have issues with your self-esteem, with your personal value, maybe with finances, very often with finances, because they used money to control you with, or they took your money from you. And so you're afraid to make it because you're going to lose it or it's going to be stolen from you. I mean, there's just so many issues you can have around money when it comes to narcissistic abuse. You're going to have issues with your self-expression. Like, who am I? What's the purpose of my life? Because they take that away from you. You don't get to be who you're meant to be. They will silence you. That's a big part of the abuse cycle, is I call it a prison of silence. They're silencing you from being able to say what you need to say and from being who you're really meant to be. So you'll feel like, I have no identity. I don't even know who I really am, because they separated you from that, because everything was about them. You had to focus on them. You may continue in your life to continue to focus on them. And the healing action for you to take is to focus on you. And this is not easy. In fact, everything I've said in this video is not easy. When you're starting to try a new strategy, a new idea, a new way of doing things, it's never easy. And it's especially difficult if you haven't done any of the inner work that it takes to really release yourself from the guilt, from the shame, from the pain, from the envy, the jealousy, the rage, all of these horrible emotions that are just so toxic and so difficult, and they become so toxic to your system that they drain your system so that you may be sick as well, which is exactly my story. Over a dozen illnesses. And there's going to be an emotional root cause of those illnesses. You're going to be holding them in your body. You're going to be holding those thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and those experiences in your body. And it's not just your experiences, it's experiences of your parents and their parents. This comes down through the generations. This makes up your DNA. This makes up your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs and experiences from your ancestors and you. Now it sounds heavy. You're just like, whoa, that's a lot to process. How do I do all of that? Find someone who can help you with narcissistic abuse and somatic or body-based therapies that will also put you into the viewpoint of the observer. Something that takes you outside of your own story, because when you get in your own story, you get locked up in the emotions, and your whole nervous system and your body can get really locked up from that. But when you're able to see it from a different point of view, from a higher point of view, and this is a big part of what transpersonal psychology helps you do, is to see things from the observer point of view. Then you're able to look at it from a whole different angle, and you're able to develop a different perception by releasing the energy from your energy field and from your body, the thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs, the core negative belief. And you're going to have core negative beliefs all throughout your system that are just jamming it. You're going to feel like, I just feel jammed. I feel like there's this wall up and no one can get through it, and I can't get on the other side of it. And I want to pull the wall down and I don't know how to do it, because that wall defends me, it protects me. And you needed that with your narcissistic parent, but you likely won't need that with other relationships in your life. When you find some really good people, and there's lots of good people out there. So that brings me back to get help. And so I offer free consultations for anyone who thinks they might want to work with me. Now, everything that I've said today is just sort of a baseline of how I work, which is very different than other narcissistic abuse teachers and therapists that I see out there, because I work on the holistic level: mental, emotional, physical, and energetic and spiritual, helping you with the whole being. Also, as a nutritional chef, I will help you with cooking and diet, because diet has a huge impact on your emotional life, on your brain, on your body. It's the baseline for every single thing we do is what we put into our bodies. So it makes a huge difference when you start to put in fuel that is enlivening the cells. And often what we do is we use junk food and sweets and alcohol and drugs and sex and shopping and all these things to try to cover up the emotions we don't want to feel. Who wants to feel the guilt and the shame? So this is why my whole person integration technique, it's the technique I created to help you release that emotional root cause in the body. That takes you outside of it and puts you in the observer mode so that you can see what's been going on with the emotion itself. And then there's a whole release and replacement process that really is incredibly healing. People leave my sessions feeling like, wow, Amazing. I feel so much better. Like an hour ago, I felt like I was going to explode. And now I feel peaceful. I feel calm. And I hear it over and over and over again with my clients, which is really exciting to see that kind of thing change and over time. And it's a short amount of time, really. I mean, 3 months to 6 months working with a person, watching the wall come down and not feeling exposed after the wall comes down, feeling less triggered by things that used to trigger you before that just don't anymore. Being able to go like, you know what, that's their thing. It's not mine at all, and I don't have to take it on. That's not a simple thing to arrive at. You can arrive at that cognitively, but when you arrive at it in your whole being, it's a whole different space. All right, so I know I've been saying a lot in this video to try to help you with strategies to deal with your narcissistic parent. Please put in the comments below things that you would add to this video, things that really helped you in this video, and any suggestions you have for videos you would like me to make for you. Please go ahead and put those in the comments below. And again, like, subscribe, and book a free call with me if you think you might want to work with me. I'm Dr. Meg Haworth, and I hope this information will help you get well now and become the icon in your own life.